lot to the Oxford-Cambridge-Oxbridge model, which is a model that allows students to kind of use their interests and their passions to kind of create their own curriculum, essentially to create their own networks of advisors, to create their own learning paths so that they can create something that is totally unique to them. And what we often told students is that the real world doesn't have required reading. The real world doesn't have compulsory mentors. And we may as well start practicing now, here in this class. And in the early part of the class, as Greg said, we did these Ignite format presentations. And Alexi Van Gelder used his passion for solving one of the world's greatest challenges to direct his learning. And he's going to share that with us in this Ignite presentation.
As some of you might know, clean drinking water is an increasingly scarce resource on our planet today. It affects almost every region in every corner of our world. Good evening, I'm Alexi Van Gelder. I'm going to talk to you about ways we can secure our water resources through better management techniques. Some of these ideas you might be familiar with, others may be new to you. Specifically, I want to look at how localization of water resources is perhaps the fastest and easiest way to mitigate our risks against the water crisis. In the United States, we're lucky to have an infrastructure that provides clean drinking water to our faucets every day. So much so that maybe we take it for granted sometimes. But that water that we rely on comes from 167 miles away. Now, don't get me wrong, I love San Francisco water. I have a water bottle to prove it. But this is the sort of thing that can happen if we rely on distant single sources of water. There are better ways. What if we put rooftop rainwater capture systems on every rooftop in San Francisco? We could reduce our dependence on the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir in Yosemite by 30% and provide ourselves an emergency source of water in case of a natural disaster. Instead, cities around the world are spending billions of dollars on expensive projects like desalination plants, and spending more money doesn't always equal a better solution. Thinking about rainwater capture systems, we imagine rooftops. We're actually neglecting the largest rainwater capture system we have, our land. Our land stores a huge amount of rainwater that is vital to our food production capability. 70 to 80% of our water goes to the agricultural industry. At least 40% of it comes from the ground. But in order to store our water underground, several things have to happen. Well, first of all, it depends on the amount of rainfall in the region and the ability for that land to absorb water. So it makes sense to limit our food production in certain regions, because this sort of thing can happen. It's having devastating consequences. We're pumping way more water out of the ground than we should be in certain areas. But in other regions, we get plenty of rainfall, yet the land isn't productive because the water isn't absorbing into that soil. So what can we do about this? Well, first of all, these are the tools that we use on rooftops: rain barrels, cisterns, and sometimes it may not be sexy, but it works. Now, On land, these tools are a little more complex. They go by names like sustainable land management, holistic management, but the underlying principles are all the same. If we take care of our land, it'll take care of us. Let me share one example of a tool. Believe it or not, cattle can actually play a vital role in reducing our risk to a water crisis. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now. Cattle have huge water footprints and emit vast amounts of methane gas. That's true. But hey, you can't blame these guys. It's actually our problem. It's the way we manage cattle that's the real problem. A vast amount of the water footprint in a cow is from the grains it eats. If we manage our cattle properly, their hooves till the soil, allowing water to absorb into that soil more easily, increasing land's productivity, and sequestering CO2. So, if we take our 9.7 million cattle out of feedlots where they are today and put them back on the farmland, we can go a long way towards securing our agricultural groundwater resources. FDR once said, "A nation that destroys its soil destroys itself." I'd like to add, a nation that doesn't localize its water resources, whether on its farmland or in its cities, puts its citizens at risk. I hope you'll join me, and let's change that. Thank you very much.